medicine can be overwhelming, right? It requires a lot of your time. I think you spend probably more than 50% of your time at work versus at home. And you need to have good support systems, not just at home, but also at work. So, make friends, make friends. I'm super excited to be able to share this video with you guys. My name is Mbeeli. I am a medical doctor by profession, born and raised in the land of the brave, Namibia. And I'm currently working as a medical officer in the Department of Pediatric Surgery at both Windhoek Central as well as Katutura Hospital, which happen to be both in Windhoek, which is the capital city of Namibia. I'm a God-fearing Christian, and I'm honestly so blessed and humbled by the opportunity that God has given me to be able to execute my calling in this particular department at this hospital and in this country. And I hope that my story will be able to enrich you and actually help you on your journey as well. So where did I study? I studied at the one, the only, the prestigious University of Pretoria, Tuks of Nix. I graduated in December 2018, and I came straight back to Namibia, where I've been working initially as an intern for 2 years. Subsequently, thereafter, started working as a medical officer in the Department of Pediatric Surgery. So where did I do my internship? So in Namibia, there's only 2 places that you can do internship in. Either you are in Windhoek, the capital city, and in Windhoek you work at usually both hospitals, Katutura Hospital and Windhoek Central Hospital. You usually sort of alternate sometimes, depending on the department that you're working in, you'll be at the one hospital, and other times you might be at the one hospital. Although all your calls take place at Katutura Hospital. The other place that you can do your internship is in the north of Namibia, specifically at Intermediate Hospital Shakati or Onajokwe Hospital. So there they also only have 2 hospitals. So you're either an intern here in Windhoek or you're an intern in the north. So I happen to be placed here in Windhoek. And honestly, they say regardless, because I obviously now haven't done my internship in the north, but hi guys, internship rough. I think that any intern anywhere can tell you and attest to that. Internship is a lot. Hey, it really is. I think it obviously depends on the department that you're in, depends on the hospital that you happen to be in, but mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, physically, it is exhausting. I'm honestly really glad that those 2 years are behind me, but there is so much, so much that I've learned and that have helped me to become a better doctor that I would not take for granted at all. Those 2 years of internship were crucial. I mean, the difference in Namibia, mainly, I think I found was that you're expected to be both a full-time student and a full-time doctor. And by that, I mean every department or every rotation basically expects you to write what they call an evaluation or a rotation test, mid-rotation and at the end of the rotation. Most rotations work like that. So basically, you go to Ops and Gynae, midway, you write a test, and at the end, you write a test, which you need to pass, by the way. And obviously they evaluate your overall performance, and then depending on the department, there's also certain procedures you're supposed to do. So at the end, or midway actually, they firstly evaluate you. They'll tell you, so look, you passed your test, this is how you've been doing at work, and this is how you've been doing on your calls, etc. This is where we see the need for you to improve. And then at the end, they will basically say, okay, this is overall for your last 4 months, is sort of how we found you to be, and we think that you're a safe doctor and we are signing you off for the department. They can sometimes say, no, we're not signing you off, we expect you to come back for another 2 months, or we expect you to come back for another 4 months. So, as an intern in Namibia, what was my role and how is it different from internship in South Africa? I think that I can attest to the fact that internship is the same throughout. So, regardless of where you are, you're generally considered to be the junior doctor on the team who reports to a medical officer and you report to a consultant. And as much as you can be considered, the least, you're actually, in my opinion, the most valuable on the team. Unfortunately, as interns, you're considered a potter, you're considered a nurse, you're considered a technician, you're considered a counselor, and also a doctor. So you honestly are a jack of all trades, right? And I think the main differences that I've recognized, in consultation with some of my peers that studied or that did their internship in South Africa, I think one of the important things is the salary difference. I think the salary difference between interns here and in South Africa, yeah, there is a bit of a difference. I will not disclose the numbers. I think another important thing was just how in South Africa, I think a lot of your interns in general have more rights in the sense compared to internship here in Namibia. And by rights, I mean things like having a pre-call in some of your rotations in SA and a post-call. So pre-call basically is an opportunity to several hours before your call for you to actually be at home and rest. And then your call starts at, let's say, 3 or 4. You enjoy your call for let's say about 12 or 16 hours, and then the following day you have post-call. So that happens at some of the hospitals in South Africa. I do not speak generally, but some of the hospitals of some of my peers have a pre-call, post-call system, which is something here in Namibia you do not have. So here in Namibia, you come in the morning to your ward where you've been allocated, you see your patients, you start your call whenever you're done in the ward, and then after your call, you post-call basically go back to your ward and basically see your patients in your ward, and then only you go home. So sometimes you can leave the following day at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or even 5 or later, depending on which department you're in. I think another difference that I've noted in internship here versus in South Africa is the leave days as well. So in Namibia, there are some rotations that do not offer leave at all. So for example, surgery does not offer leave at all. In gynae currently also doesn't offer leave, as compared to in South Africa, where you do have leave days and they are accounted for throughout your rotations. So I think those are the 3 main differences that I figured. So full-time student, in the sense that you're expected to study very hard and to pass your tests, while at the same time being expected to be extremely dedicated at work, to be punctual, to be proactive, to go all out for your patients and on your calls, which can be 24 to 36 hours sometimes. So yeah, you work really hard as an intern here in Namibia, I will not lie. I'm not completely sure how the situation is in the north, but in Windhoek specifically, kuraf. You lose so much weight. But you learn how to cope. I think you pick up on a lot of coping skills. And don't get me wrong, I think the system and the way things are done here in Namibia is something I think a lot of other training hospitals or teaching hospitals can actually take into practice, because you evaluating your interns is a good way to actually assess whether they are capable of taking care of those type of patients when they are actually sent out to the regions or the districts or wherever. You're actually assessing if they will be safe enough to pick up most common, most crucial, most urgent things. So I am grateful for that whole process. I remember the one doctor telling us, you know what, you guys should be grateful because internship is an opportunity for you to learn, and you writing tests is pushing you to study, versus in other institutions where you're not writing tests, you're not doing presentations and things like that. So no one is actually able to assess whether you understand what you're doing. So yeah, I am grateful for how things run here in Namibia, because at the end of the day, you're producing quality doctors, and that's the aim of internship, is to be taught and to be to have grown by the end of those 2 years, to be able to stand on your own 2 feet as an independent practitioner. That is the goal here in Namibia. I know it's a bit different in South Africa because then you are sent out into a community service here where you are still technically, at some places you're actually functioning independently, while at other places you are still sort of working under people who are able to guide you. So in Namibia, we don't have that community service here. However, you are able to go into, so after internship, you become a medical officer, basically. You can either go into private or you can stay in the state facility. So do I think or feel that medical school prepared me for internship? It's a loaded question here. And on a scale of 0 to 10, I'll give it round about a 6.5, right? My main reason is the level of responsibility. I think as a student, your level of responsibility in terms of patient care is like bare minimum. And it's like this huge paradigm shift that actually happens when you become an intern. Your first day as a medical doctor, you will feel that the level of responsibility is completely different. You are the doctor, right? You are in charge of or making sure that the management for that particular patient is carried out. And if you have to step away or have to do something for some reason, you have to make sure that you've handed over that patient for that plan to actually be continued and completed. It's not like in varsity where you could easily say, doc, I have a tutorial, I need to chip out, or doc, I have a test tomorrow, can I go early? No, you are the doctor and you need to make sure that certain things are done for your patient. I think for me, responsibility was different. Even when it comes to just filling in medical legal documents, for example, that is something that they never teach you in varsity per se. And you are expected to learn on the go. You're expected to basically pick it up and do it correctly, do it responsibly, because these things can come back to you. I think another very important aspect that never prepared us in varsity, you were taught about breaking bad news, but you never physically had to do it as a student per se. I don't actually even recall sitting in on any counseling sessions with patients or their family members, but as a doctor, you learn, and you learn very quickly. I think the unfortunate thing about this whole breaking bad news to patients and their families and that kind of thing is how quickly we also are expected to go from breaking bad news to immediately returning back into the field. Or, for example, explaining to the family that the resuscitation was unsuccessful, and immediately after that being expected to sort of go back into the field and actually help the next patient, versus when you were a student, you did these things in the skills lab or that kind of thing, and you went home and there was no implications. You were not dealing with real patients and that kind of thing. But as a doctor, this is something that you encounter on a daily, and it's something that unfortunately varsity can never fully prepare you for, and it's not their fault. I think it's just one of those things that you pick up as you go, and you just need to actually have good support systems. So, as much as we were formally evaluated, I would actually recommend that every intern as well as community service doctor actually take that upon themselves to evaluate themselves throughout the rotation, to actually see how they are doing and where they can improve, especially when it comes to things like procedures as well as your theoretical knowledge. So for us, we were forced to be evaluated, but I would highly recommend that it is something that as an intern you actually take up throughout your internship as well as community service period, because at the end of the day, it's helping you take out the most that you can and actually help you become the best doctor that you can ultimately be. So as much as internship was hectic, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is to evaluate oneself, to see how you're doing, where you can improve, to ask for assistance, because as an intern you are a doctor in training, and then hence you are expected to ask questions, you're expected to make mistakes, but not and actually learn from those mistakes, so that as you further on, you're actually not making the same mistakes, and you can teach the people that are coming after you to avoid the same mistakes that you made. In terms of community service, no, we do not have community service in Namibia. So here, as I previously mentioned, you have your 2 years of internship, and then you go and apply for a medical officer post. So after your 2 years of internship, you are seen as an independent medical practitioner, of which you can either go into private, you can go specialize, or you can then apply for a medical officer post, which is something that I did. And as for me, no shame. I've always been inclined to specialize. And I think one of the distinctions you already need to make for yourself is, do you want to stay in clinical medicine after you're done with your internship and your community service? Do you want to stay in clinical medicine? Do you enjoy working with patients? Or do you want to go into the non-clinical medicine type of work? So that's your non-clinical things are things like your forensics, are things like your pathology, so that kind of stuff. And then clinical medicine is basically everything else. And as you look at clinical medicine, you can look at it from two branches as well. Are you more of someone who is practical, so you like to be hands-on, so more surgery inclined, basically things like your obs and gynae, your surgery, general surgery, your orthopedics, your ENT, ophthalmology, all of those things are more practical, versus someone who's a thinker. So that's someone, for example, in pediatrics, internal medicine, radiology, that kind of thing. So for me, it came quite early. I think I was in the second year of varsity, and we were doing dissection. And already then I knew, check, me, I am surgery inclined. I always thought, I think up to internship, I always thought I was going to do general surgery. But as of late and starting in the pediatric surgery department, I've been swayed in that direction. Thank you to my consultant if she's watching. But yeah, I think as you go along, you have time to sort of decide as you go through internship and your community service year. If you currently don't know, what you want to specialize in, it's not a train smash. You have time, and as you go through the rotations, just sort of pick up on what you like, what you enjoy, what you think you can actually spend a bulk of your time post community service doing, and hopefully up to retirement even. So honestly, I commend those who want to stay as general practitioners, because it's honestly a love. You need to have a love for general practice. You need to have a love for it in the sense that you must be willing to update yourself, because your patients ultimately depend on you and your knowledge and your ability to know when to refer and when to treat and what to treat and that kind of thing. And it's so broad. So I honestly commend those who decide to actually stay in general practice. It's not an easy task to do, but we need you. We really do need you. So, what is my current role and what does it entail? So, as previously mentioned, I'm a medical officer in pediatric surgery. So, the department is quite relatively new still. The department was established about 2 years ago. It's the first pediatric surgery department in Namibia. We have about 3 consultants currently and 3 medical officers. We're in total 3 medical officers. And then we have 2 interns basically that rotate in our department every 2 weeks, sorry. Basically, our role, or my role as a medical officer, is mostly to oversee the interns and make sure, that certain tasks are being carried out. I think with pediatric surgery, we are actually a very hands-on department. So it's not just leaving things to interns to complete. We as medical officers are very hands-on as well. It also entails us being liaising very closely with private as well, because a lot of our investigations for our kids, unfortunately, are not offered in the public sector. So we have to take our kids to private to actually get those investigations done before we can decide on operating, or before we can decide on a particular management plan. We also basically liaise very closely with the regions, as I previously mentioned. So all the regions basically, because we're the only pediatric surgery department, constantly discuss with us and call us for either opinions, consultations, for us to accept patients from the regions, and things like that. So that is my current role as a medical. Okay, so in terms of the public health sector in Namibia, it's very much centralized to Windhoek, right? So a lot of our specialists are found in Windhoek, and a lot of our subspecialties are also found in Windhoek. So a lot of the regions, a lot of the time, if they have patients that they want to be seen, all send their patients here to Windhoek. So if you have a patient that needs attention from a vascular point, they come to Windhoek. From a pediatric surgery point, they come to Windhoek. And just surgery in general, they mostly come to Windhoek if it can't be attended to in the regions. So Windhoek is basically the center hub of our public health. And it's because of that we have what we call a referral basis. So what they do is we have referral days and referral buses. So for example, the south, all the regions in the south of Namibia, when they have patients that they need to be seen by a specialist, they will send the patients all on a Monday with a bus, and then investigations and management and all these things takes place on a Tuesday. And if the patient is able to go back, then they go back with a bus on a Wednesday. That same Wednesday is when we receive buses that are coming from the north as well as the east of Namibia, and they arrive on that Wednesday. The Thursday we attend to them, and if they are fine, the Friday we send them back. So that's literally what happens. Windhoek is literally the center hub of your public health in Windhoek, in Namibia. The other very important thing that happens here in Windhoek is also imaging. Imaging is one of the places, or imaging takes place mostly in Windhoek in a sense. So things like your CT scans. I mean, in the north of Namibia, they also have one CT scan there, which is but faulty here and there most of the time. So patients sometimes are being all referred here. So things like your CT scans, your barium studies, and all those other things take place here in Windhoek. And if you want to book a patient for an MRI scan, you send them all to Windhoek. And unfortunately, because of that huge pool of patients that our radiology department is servicing, it means obviously investigations are taking longer to report, and unfortunately that also delays management. But I think that's one of the big differences that I found here in Namibia versus in South Africa, where you have more hospitals to actually send patients to, and you have a lot of other hospitals that are closer to the smaller district hospitals that they can actually refer patients to, versus everything being sent to Windhoek. I think another very important thing is the fact that we do not have a system like LabTrack in Namibia. So we use a system called Meditech for us to trace results for patients. And unfortunately, compared to South Africa, LabTrack is something that you can access on your phone, right, wherever you are. In Namibia, Meditech can only be accessed on the hospital premises on a computer, right? And if that computer does not have the Meditech app, you can't access results. So unfortunately, if you're at home and you wanted to make a decision about a patient, you would have to call someone who's at the hospital who can actually go and find a computer with Meditech on, or alternatively, you have a friend in the lab that you can call up and ask them to chase results for you. So I think that was one of the most challenging things for me in the beginning in terms of chasing results for patients, is the frustrating thing of finding a computer to actually chase your patients' results. And I think also just the centralization of Namibia's healthcare, mostly to Windhoek, I think is also unfortunately at a disadvantage to the patients. But because our health system is also still developing, we can understand where it's coming from, and hopefully with us having more people that have gone to specialize, more numbers will come back, and hopefully in future we can send more of those specialists more towards the region so that they can actually service patients there instead of us having to send everybody to Windhoek. So lastly, what advice do I have for any of you that are going to be interns soon, or community service doctors, or medical officers, I think there's three important things that I can hopefully just leave you with. The first thing is learn. They say that medicine is lifelong learning, and it really is. So whether you're an intern, whether you're a community service doctor, whether you're a medical officer, constantly open your books to read, right? The information that we had, or that we were taught as students in varsity, is not the same. It's not always the same. So we need to constantly update ourselves, because our patients depend on what we know. If you don't know something, you're unlikely to pick it up. But if you're constantly reading around your patients, when you see them in clinic or wherever you are, then you're constantly upgrading and updating yourself. I think very important things is also to do things like various courses can actually be offered. So things like your ACLS, your BLS, your ATLS for those who want to be more surgery inclined, your basic surgical skills for those who are more surgery inclined. And even as you enter into your community service and as you become a medical officer, so actually gearing up to write your primaries as well as your intermediates, and all those things. So constantly reading, learning, right? Start research as well, which is something that I'm actually gearing up to start soon, is actually getting involved in research projects and things like that. So all of that, especially for someone who wants to specialize, is all going to count in your favor at the end of the day. So get involved in, when you're going to a small clinic or whatever, pick up stats, pick up data, and start actually developing a mindful research, especially for people who want to go and specialize. I couldn't stress that enough. The second thing that I want to leave you with is respect the nurses and all the allied health science and everybody that you work with in general in the hospital setting, especially the nurses. I think junior doctors make this mistake in the sense that they sometimes think that they're more superior and they've studied for longer, but you have so many nurses with so much experience and so much wisdom that they are willing to impart on you if you are open to learning, and if you are a respectable young doctor, and if you carry yourself with much humility. I think things will just go well with you, not just with regards to the nursing staff, but the porter, the cleaner, everyone that you work with. Carry yourself with much respect. Yes, you studied 6 years. Yes, you're a doctor, but they are also just as important as you are in terms of the ultimate management and outcome of the patient. I think the last thing I can leave you with is have a good support system. I cannot stress this enough. Medicine can be overwhelming, right? It requires a lot of your time. I think you spend probably more than 50% of your time at work versus at home. And you need to have good support systems, not just at home, but also at work. So, make friends, join groups at work and that kind of thing that can actually help uplift you as you go along. It honestly brings out the best in you and helps you to be the best doctor you can be for your patients, because ultimately your patients depend on you to be the healthy version of yourself. Thank you, guys.